Good morning. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Sorry about that lateness. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you could all join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, is there any public comment? Noting no public comment, we'll move on to verification of posting of the agenda, please.
Pam Moore, for the record. The agenda was posted on February 28th between the hours of 1 and 5 at all of the locations listed on the agenda in accordance with statutes.
Thank you, Pam. This is going to be a revised agenda with the removal of 7G. Can I get a motion to approve that agenda as submitted?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as submitted, revised.
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Move on to item 6, consideration of possible action, approval of the minutes of the meeting held on February 6, 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes dated for February 6, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Move on to our first appointment, 7A, consideration of possible action, approval of a 12-month extension requested by NevDev LLC to complete the engineering and construction of a road improvement to record the parcel map for APN 008-176-82 as required by the conditions of approval. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. Dean Patterson, Public Works and Planning for the record. This is a request for an extension of 2 parcel maps that the board approved about this time last year. They're for 7 parcels. They are including 2 short segments of road that end in cul-de-sacs, which you can see on the map there. The applicant has experienced some delays, including things like approval of plans from NV Energy, getting road plans put together, that sort of thing. I understand we have the road plans and they'll be approved shortly, so they intend to finish the road construction in short order. So this extension will allow them to finish that. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions or comments from board or staff for Dean? Is there any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the 12-month extension to complete the road improvements.
Make a second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Dean. 7B, consideration of possible action, ratification of an agreement between Churchill County Social Services and the State of Nevada Department of Industry, Division of Housing in the amount of $25,000 to support a contract with Winged Wolf Innovations Incorporated on behalf of the Rural Nevada Continuum of Care. Shannon?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. For the record, Shannon Ernst, Churchill County Social Services. I brought a previous agreement such as this before you, and really it is funds that are awarded to Churchill County Social Services to support the contract for the Rural Nevada Continuum of Care, which is required to have in order for us to receive HUD supportive housing funds. So today I'm asking that we ratify this agreement and authorize me to sign a second contract with Wingwold to complete the scope of work. This one is a retro. This one goes back to July 1 forward.
Thank you, Shannon. Any questions or comments from board or staff? Is there any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to ratify the agreement and authorize the Director of Social Services to execute the agreement as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
7C, consideration of possible action, review of the State of Nevada Division of Child and Family Services, Child Protective Services, summary and maltreatment allegations, second quarter report for Churchill County. You're up again.
Good morning. I'm sorry, I thought this was just under letters received. I apologize. Again, for the record, Shannon, Churchill County Social Services. So as required by our Child Protective Services, basically unfunded mandate to pay for these, it's an investigation report. So as you will see in there, every quarter we will receive this showing how many actual reports come in for investigation, how many basically are screened out, how many are gone for abuse. So this is just a requirement by the statute and this agreement to provide to you, so you see where your funds are going and what it looks like. And if you look, I did a comparison for you within the agenda report showing our increases. As you can see, this year, at the second quarter, we did have a decrease over the first quarter.
Any questions for Shannon? Is there any public comment? A motion, please? Just for
Yes,
information only.
information only, you do not need motion.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Move on to 7D, consideration of possible action, approval of the abandonment of a portion of Road 973-100 as listed in document number 475559, located within APN 004-351-09 and APN 004-351-15, a portion of Road 973-150 as listed in document number 475563, located within APN 004-351-09, a portion of Road lost my spot. A portion of Road 973160 as listed in document number 475568 located within APN 004-351-09. A portion of Road 973171 as listed in document number 475570 located within APN 004-351-09. A portion of Road 973172 as listed in document number 475571 located within APN 004-351-09. A portion of Road number 974200 as listed in document number 475591 located within APN 004-351-11. A portion of Road number 973100 as listed in document number 475559 located within APN 004-351-15. And the acceptance of the proposed road and utility easement located within APN 004-351-09, APN 004-351-11, and APN 004-351-15 filed by NV Energy. That is a mouthful. Who is taking this one and who is responsible for that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It
Joe
is Joe's
Sanford for the
fault.
record. Thought someone else was talking. So we've had this come up several times by now. This is the intent of the Sierra Solar project to abandon roads inside of their parcels to have solar panels placed in those areas. This board already approved the plan to abandon these 8 additional roads back in May of 2024. It was conditioned upon several things, including them actually building all of the replacement roads and dedicating easements for those replacement roads. That has been done, and those easements are prepared for your review and acceptance today. This would be the formal abandonment and the formal acceptance of those easements. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions or comments from board or staff? Is there any public comment? A motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the abandonment of the county roads and acceptance of the new road and utility easements as presented.
As presented, that's convenient for you guys. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Consideration of possible, 7E, consideration of possible action, review of a proposal to align Churchill Area Regional Transportation as part of Churchill County as requested by Churchill Area Regional Transportation Board of Directors. Shannon, want to lead this off?
Good morning again. For the record, Shannon, Churchill County Social Services. I believe Carla Kent, the president of the Churchill, the CART Board of Directors, was going to join us. I do not see her here yet. So a motion was made by the CART Board of Directors on February 28th, requesting that Churchill County review bringing CART under the Churchill County structure. This is something that has been kind of being reviewed since 2021, based on we have not been able to obtain a director. Kathy Lucero has done a great job as an interim director, but we have not been able to get to the level where we can maintain compliance as we proceed. As you see in the agenda report, we went through a compliance audit in December, and we did have some findings. And just to note, myself, I am the vice president of the CART board, and Commissioner Hyde is also on the board. And as we review this, it's really looking at an amazing program within our community that needs to be maintained. How do we do that and support as this goes forward? They are currently a standalone nonprofit. We have worked diligently to build up policies, procedures to maintain as the changes happen through the transportation network. Through the evaluation, if the program was to come under Churchill County, that if it was a standalone, such as the museum or as the library with a manager, you're looking at an increase of about $75,000 a year because you would be taking staff within the program and providing them the PERS and the county benefit packet. We did also evaluate what if we brought it under the Aging and Disabilities Division of Churchill County Social Services. And I am being conservative in saying we would have a reduction of about $40,000 is what you could do, is align the transportation program with under social services and the CART program to make these work. It's really looking at how do we maintain and sustain a program in our community that's much needed, correct? Oh, sorry. And here is President Kett. So we've brought forward a couple of different options. The urgency of this is the NDOT grants are due on Monday by 5 o'clock. And what we'd have to do in order for it to come under Churchill County is apply under Churchill County, not under the nonprofit. And so that's why we provided you a couple of different motions today. It's either myself going forward and applying on behalf of Churchill County for the 3 applications under NDOT and having those submitted Monday. Concern, what if we are not funded, right? Or do we maintain it as a nonprofit and CART goes ahead and proceeds and submits those on Monday? It's a 2-year cycle. So Churchill County could not look at this as an option for another 2 years. And this is how all the grants are working with under the NDOT process. What have I missed?
I don't think you missed anything. But
So I'm going to let President, can't speak, go ahead.
Carly Kent, President of CARTS. I'm not exactly sure everything that Shannon has told you, but we have been operating with an interim director for a couple of years. We've been working very hard to try to find a director, but due to the fact, I'm very sorry, due to the fact that we're not able to offer a retirement to this position, it makes it pretty tough to fill. And then like Shannon was mentioning with the grants and the uneasiness we have there, we're not sure where we really stand. So we just believe, and we've been in some situations where we've been in violation due to not having the expertise there in that director's position. But we've been able to, especially with Shannon's help, to get those back in line and all in the right order, and with your attorneys. So we just think that it's probably the best survival of this program, especially since transportation is one of the biggest concerns, not only in Fallon, Nevada, but across the nation. So we just would really like if you would consider putting CARTs.
Thank you, guys. Any questions or comments from board or staff? Is there any public comment? We'll jump back to you, Eric.
How many people a day use this service? Do we have an average on that?
I do not have that number in front of
Sorry
me,
to put you
but
on the spot.
no problem. I'm not sure if our interim director, Kathy Lucera, is here. I'm not sure if she could answer that for you at this moment.
Okay. It's not,
Here they come forward.
use the mic. Any of those are fine up there.
For the record, Kathy Lucero, Interim Director for CART. Individual rides per year, or did you want individuals who ride?
no, just an average daily use. The public uses the
On a daily
service.
basis?
Or-
On a daily basis, it would be between 50 and, on a good day, almost 100.
Yeah. So it's definitely a vital part of our community to help.
So we provide yearly, last year, off the top of my head, I want to say 17,000 unduplicated rides. But I can actually send the board or the commissioners an accurate tally of that if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned that you had concern that the state may not fund the grants?
So every 2 years it's a competitive cycle. there's a concern that CART may not be funded. That's just how it moves forward. And so that's why I never want you to think we're for sure have this funding, because when it goes competitive, there's a chance that many programs could be reduced. They may not be funded. I have had the pleasure to work with Adult Disability and Aging Services, and that is one of the funders. They do support if the county does take this over, and they said any funding that is allocated to CART, just as such when this happened with the Life Center, those could be changed and modified to Churchill County from CART. NDOT does not do that. They do not provide modifications or changes within their grant cycles for that 2 years. This is a conversation we've had. If something was to happen, if Churchill County, how I look at this is if Churchill County did come forward, decide to bring this under the operations, we apply, we're not funded, is what we would do is go to a reduced program based on the funding that we've allocated in the social services budget, in the senior tax levy budget, to provide a minimal service and build the program back up. It's just like any other grant funds within social services. We may be reduced at any time. We do a reduction in programming. We look at alternative funding. We're always trying to find other things to support.
Okay. And then your social services department would be the excellent department for that to be under, I would assume, and you don't find that to be an administrative or no issue there, correct? There's staff for that?
We would look at the structure. So if you voted today to bring, I would ask today if we move forward just to bring it under Churchill County. I would apply for the grants under Churchill County, and then we would give us time to actually map out exactly what this would look like. We would be notified of the award sometime in July and August to know what those funding looks like. What is the best placement? Is it with social services aligning with our transportation program? Or is this something that should stand under a different structure? That would give us the time. Really, the urgency is to know, do we want to place this under Churchill County, moving effective in October? Or do we want to leave it as a nonprofit? It provides me the information to know if I should go ahead and proceed and get the authorization from you to apply for these grants, or if we should let them stand alone.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Any other questions from board or staff? Is there any public comment? A motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to proceed with Churchill County to implement the Churchill Area Regional Transportation as part of the county on or before October the 1st, 2025, and to further authorize and direct Social Services Director to work with the CART Interim Director to submit NDOT 5310, 5311, and 5339 grant applications for FY26 and FY27 on or before March the 10th of 2025, to be effective on or before October the 1st, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you both for what you do for CART. Jump to 7F, consideration and possible action, approval of an extension to or amend of a real estate purchase and sale agreement with Vertex Fund 3 for 2 parcels of land located on Coleman Road, Fallon, Nevada, APN 008-301-11 and APN 008-301-12. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe Sanford for the record. This is a continuation from a hearing that was held 2 weeks ago at the second meeting in February. This board made a motion at that time to extend the agreement for till today's date, while council and I worked on a proposed amendment, as well as I believe all of the parties had a chance to present and prepare documentation for what exactly this would look like moving forward. I have had the opportunity to work on an amendment. Generally, it's agreeable at this point in time in terms of the legal status, but I would like to leave it to you guys to make a determination as to how you'd like to proceed. If you do want to consider the amendment, I do have a couple of pieces that would need to be addressed.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you guys if you guys want to give your presentation.
Stephen Tuck, Managing Member of the Vertex Fund 3, for the record. As Mr. Sanford stated, we've been working on this since we saw you last, and I think we've come up with with what we feel is a fair conclusion. And so that I don't mix my words, I'd like for our council to present that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. For the record, my name is Garrett Gordon, law firm of Womble, Bond, Dickinson, formerly known as Louis Roca since January, representing Vertex today. First of all, Mr. Chairman and Commission, thank you for the opportunity last meeting to give us a couple weeks to sit down with your council. Just for the record, it's a pleasure working with Mr. Sanford, competent, responsive, and I think we made a lot of progress in the last 2 weeks, so thank you. I have a brief presentation, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Thought it might be helpful. So again, today we're asking you to consider an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement. Just to refresh everyone's memory, we really want to bring this apartment project to this community. As contemplated, it would bring 420 units. You can see the proposed site plan on the left-hand side. Certainly this would fill that gap and support Churchill County's rental housing shortage, create transitional multi-generational housing. I think it's important too to note for the record, to date, that Vertex has incurred over $1.8 million in costs. So they haven't been sitting on their hands the last couple of years. They have been working hard. And what have they been doing? They completed a title analysis, a feasibility analysis, a rezoning through the county's process, a tentative map, which obviously takes a lot of time and effort and money to get that map forward, which includes a grading plan. As you may have heard from your Public Works Department, grading is not simple on this site, so we've been working hard to make sure that balances of what fill needs to come in to make sure it can move forward. And then last but not least, that final map, which in any development takes a lot of time and effort and money and resources to move that forward. So there's been a lot of resources incurred and invested. And where are we today? Just to remind the Commission for the record, we have submitted the final map once, got comments back. It's been resubmitted earlier last month, so we're not sitting on any documents at this point. It's with your certainly competent staff, and hopefully if we move forward today, we'll continue working with them to get that finalized. And then in good faith, we also submitted our NDEP submittal earlier this month. That has been submitted, and we look forward to working with the state to accomplish that. So a lot of work's been done, progress is made, and I thought it'd be helpful just to do 2 or 3 slides here of what really the amendment does today. So there's 2 things. We're requesting an extension, and then what does the county get in return for that extension? So the extension is we're actually amending and restating the agreement. So it's crystal clear, no more extensions or extension rights would be given to us. We have a new agreement, and that new agreement does a couple things. It removes our feasibility period, our environmental review, our zoning period, the review of project documents. All that has been done. No more of those items need to be accomplished. We're now just waiting for the final map. Closing shall occur 45 days after approval of the final plat and entitlement documents. So once that final map comes to this body and is approved, we would close 45 days afterward. Why 45 days? Because whenever this body takes action, there's a 25-day appeal period for us, but not us if you're approving our map. The public or some other organization can file an appeal. We want to make sure that appeal period expired before we actually closed. Entitlement period would end, we have a date certain in there of August 7th, 2025. And why do we have that date? Because that's the date that we'd envision our final map either early or on that date would come before you for a final review and approval, and then we'd have 45 days to let the appeal period expire and then close. The entitlement period also has an unreasonable reviewer delay. What is that? And I appreciate Mr. Stanford took a kind of first crack at drafting this. We took a crack at drafting it. Here's where we landed and thought it was reasonable. So our entitlement period ends August 7th, but as you know, whenever you're dealing with a final map, there's third-party agencies or organizations that we can't control. For example, BOR, NDEP, NV Energy, TCID, that if we're submitting information to those organizations, especially a federal organization like BOR, which I understand is going to take significant time given what's going on in DC, it might take longer than we'd like. It might take longer than August 7th. So we put in there this reviewer delay that if we, and I think that bullet point was really important that your council put in, so long as the delay is not caused by or contributed by us. So we're submitting everything timely, we're copying council and the county manager and your planning director on all of our submittals, so it's very timely. nothing's caused or contributed by us for the delay, then we do get that unreasonable review or delay benefit of the doubt that if it's the agencies that are holding us up past August 7th, not us, we're still in the game. But I did review the contract one more time, and it looked like to me, and Mr. Stanford will surely correct me if I'm wrong, it looked like to me that was an indefinite period of time as presented in your staff report, that it could go on for months, if not years, and that was not the intent. So we thought it was reasonable to just give us till the end of the year. Give us till August 7th to move forward, get the final map hopefully approved, but if there is some federal or state or local agencies that are holding us up, not because it's our fault, we have until the end of the year. And I would say for the record, if the end of the year comes, we understand that that was the extension we were given, and would understand that we would no longer have the ability for any future extensions. But we thought that was fair of what we're asking for today. Now, what does the county get in return, right? And I give credit to Mr. Stanford. There was a long list of red lines back to us of what should the county get for giving that, I would say, modest extension. Well, number one, again, the amended and restated agreement. We're waiving all feasibility, all environmental, all project documents, no more extension rights whatsoever by us. Two, a request in increase in the deposit. The county felt it was appropriate to almost triple the amount of money that is being held in escrow for this contract, and that we become non-refundable. So if we default, that 20 grand goes to you as the remedy for us not being able to close by that April 7th or by the end of the year due to third-party reviews. I thought that was fair, right? In my experience negotiating contracts, you get an extension, usually there's some money for paying for that extension. But we went your county staff or attorney went a little farther. And at first we were apprehensive, thinking, well, this isn't equitable. We don't need to renegotiate the whole deal. Like, we're just asking for an extension in exchange for a monetary payment. But we are now agreeable, and we understand the intent. As you know, or may know, that if we do record the final map and close, that doesn't mean we're done with the county. We still have triggers to accomplish post-closing to make sure you get the apartment project that we promised. And if we don't satisfy these requirements, you can buy back the property. As currently written, right, I have it there, the old language says that you have a right to repurchase the property with the cost of the improvements we put in the property or the appraised value of the site, less 10% penalty for noncompliance. We understand Mr. Stanford's point that this has taken longer than we both have expected. And if that appraisal language stayed in there, it might be a windfall to us because as the value of the property has increased over the years, it wouldn't be fair for us to get that windfall of an appraised value when this has taken longer than expected. So we get that there is, and I think Mr. Stanford can appreciate, a legal nexus of amending this section in exchange for an extension. So what's the new language say? So the new language would say, in the event that we don't meet certain triggers after closing, one or two things have occurred. If we've done nothing, we close, nothing's happened, we sit on our hands, and we don't meet the triggers, which I'll show you on the next slide, then the repurchase price by the county to us is what we paid for it. So the 600 grand for the land and whatever we paid for the water rights, plus total improvement costs. That was also changed by your council because before a post-closing breach, you have to not only pay us for the land, but the 1.8, everything we put into it, all the engineering fees, project documents, et cetera. Your council makes a very good point. Well, maybe you don't want that. Or maybe if you turn it over to a new builder, they may have a new engineer, or they may have a new analysis to be done. They don't want our documents. So that's now discretionary. So there's no guarantee we get back that 1.8 or any of it if you don't want the documents. So that's number one. If we sit on our hands, don't do anything, it's equitable that you get the property back for what we paid for it. And at that point, it's your decision whether you want to pay us for the project documents. Or if construction has commenced or hard costs have been incurred, it is the appraised value of the site. And I think this is an important distinction in the document at the time of default. So our vision is if we've built 2 buildings, and the third building we don't meet, you'll see the phased trigger, then it wouldn't just be the purchase price of 600 grand, because we've put $30 million into it, if not more, with 2 buildings. So you would get the buildings back, but you'd have to pay us for it. Now, realistically, I would assume if we built 2 buildings and the third phase we're a little behind on, and we've proven to you that we can put a shovel in the ground and build buildings, and we've proven to you we're on the way, I'm sure we would negotiate an extension for that third phase, I would think, because we've now shown you we can do it. But I thought that was the new language that Mr. Sanford provided. We are agreeable to. I just thought that we needed to make sure it's the appraised value at the time of default, and the 10% penalty remains. So in summary, this is what the county gets for our extension until August. It includes not only more money to recoup, but also a more equitable repurchase price based on where we are today. So the schedule of performance. So this was put in the contract, redlined by your council, directed, I assume, by Public Works and Planning, and we didn't modify this whatsoever. This is what was proposed by the county of, we want you to meet these triggers, including that second bullet point of, after we close, we want building permit applications in within 9 months. If we don't do that, you give us our 600 grand back, you move on with someone else. Phase construction, you can see a water extension agreement. This was your staff's recommendation and desire, and we did not touch it and say, we will meet these triggers from you. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I would just say, again, I really appreciate the time. We would ask you today, if at all possible, to approve the amendment with the tweaks in my presentation, or alternatively, if there was additional concerns by this commission that you wouldn't default us today or terminate the contract today, that you would give us and your council direction on maybe what business points needing additional work, and give us a chance to come back one more time in 2 weeks. Mr. Chair, I know it was a little long-winded, but I appreciate the opportunity to make that presentation.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from board or staff? Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add at this time. I'd like to have the board make its discussion on what it would like to do. There are a couple of things that were still in that amendment that were not perfect. Specifically, there's an Exhibit B that has some language about water rights being transferred, when we've also said we're not going to have water rights being transferred. So it's just some minor cleanup language like that, as well as potentially addressing our intentions as it relates to the property purchased by Vertex. We've, I think, agreed at this point in time that they have no interest in transferring the property to the county as part of a default. I would like to potentially at least resolve what we're going to do with that in the event of a default. If it's not that, whether it's purchased at an appraisal or it just defaults and they keep the property and we don't have continuing obligation to purchase it. Right now, it would be a litigation issue that I'd rather have a definite answer on. But I think that's a secondary concern that I'd like to get to, where I think council has presented that if the board is interested in proceeding in that direction, we would work on resolving that issue. If not, then I don't see a need to address it until you've decided that that's what you want to do.
Okay. Any questions or comments from board or staff? Discussion.
I just have one, I came in to this at the end. How many extensions have been granted to date?
So for the history of the project, the initial term would have expired in 2023, about July. No extensions were applied for or discussed at that time. The county reached out to try to create a plan, so we adopted a complete amendment at that time. That amendment included 2 extensions at the request of the developer, and they have used both of those extensions. So I would say there has been essentially three extension periods.
The bottom red button.
Sorry about that, thank you. I believe there was 3 in there that you had the opportunity to grant, of which we used 2, and instead of getting to the 3rd, we're sitting here talking about this.
Yes, so we have, the developer had 2 rights of extension. They have used both. The county has a right to extend it by 60 days at its own discretion. Like we've discussed, I don't believe an extension under those terms makes a lot of sense, which is why we've created this amendment. So instead of doing a county extension, if that is your desire, it would be to proceed with the amendment.
You previously was granted extension time. Can you speak to why nothing progressed during those extension times and how we got here today?
So I'm going to let Lonnie Phelps, principal of Phelps Engineering, speak to that, but the statement, sorry, Stephen Tuck for the record, the statement that nothing has progressed is incorrect. We have made a significant amount of progress, and the point I was trying to make during our last interaction a couple weeks ago is that where I'm most upset with ourselves is being over-optimistic with the entitlement period, especially having done entitlements before. We just thought that it would move faster. This is an inherently complicated process with 1,000 moving parts and a lot of different people that have to review all of this and addressing comments to make sure that we are helping and not hurting here. And that is what civil engineers do. So, Lonnie, how do we answer the question that why aren't we further along? And this can get convoluted quickly, so I've asked Lonnie to speak in layman's terms and not engineer terms.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lonnie Phelps, Phelps Engineering, South Reno. Good morning, Commissioners, Chair. Last, I think it was June 15th when we had our first submittal. Prior to that, we had 2 big delays on our part for the project. One was determining the appropriate course for the offsite utilities. That was a big deal. It turned out to be about a 6-month delay because that was kind of concerning, and we had to really evaluate how we were going to get into those utilities into the Omni Verde subdivision. So that was a big one. And then we had another delay with NDOT. So NDOT, we were working with them on the traffic study and the signal at 50. So NDOT had come back and they wanted more improvements to that signal, turning lanes, and so we took about 2 or 3 months to work with them, back and forth to come up with a very simple solution on signal timing and signal movements. So we got all that resolved. So NDOT, so basically between all those probably 9 months, 10 months. So we submitted June 15th. We got comments back late September. Started working on it in early November. So it takes a little bit of time to assess the comments, put staffing together, and then proceed further. And we made some significant design changes to the drainage to make sure we had a feasible project. And I kind of mentioned that to staff. So we really did a lot of value engineering on the project. Took a lot of time on that because I've got to stamp it, I've got to prove it. It's kind of my responsibility. So we made sure that, and I'm very comfortable now with this submittal. Now, could we have a few comments from Shaw as we come back? Yes, I don't have a problem with that. When we submitted June 15th, we also submitted to BOR. So BOR got our plans, the improvement plans within the Coleman right-of-way. So they came back and said, okay, guys, you got to send us a check for 20 grand or whatever, and we're going to do a cultural resource study and a NEPA study. And we said, hey, can we do the cultural resource study? Take it off your plate so we have control of it. They said yes. So we had a new letter from them. We hired Stantec. Stantec did the cultural resource study, and we just got it last week. It took them 6 months to do it. It's kind of out of our hands, but we didn't leave it to the BOR, okay? We did that. So the cultural resource study is going in tomorrow, and then after that, BOR will do the NEPA study. And we've got a decent communication line with the BOR as far as, because we're doing a lot of work with our other projects. So we're going to be continuing to monitor BOR and to make sure they're kind of progressing through it. You know, these days, with a lot of outside issues and staffing of federal agencies, I think we can get it done in the 5-6 months, but we're going to be pushing on them, and we're going to be trying as hard as we can to get that approved.
Another place we could have been much better was keeping the board and the council abreast of where we were. And part of this proposed amendment, as council suggested, was that we are keeping you in the loop constantly of where we are with our submissions, what's happening, and making sure, really that you understand that nothing is happening, and we can show you that.
Currently, right now, just for a side note, I've got 3 contractors bidding the civil work, so I'm starting to get ahead of the game on that aspect of the work.
When you took on this project, were you aware of all the barriers that you would face to get this project off the ground?
Definitely not the offsite utilities. That was a big one.
Okay. And then last meeting, you gave us an update of your other projects in the region. Do you have any other new updates concerning those projects in the region that's transpired in the last 30 days?
Yeah, so we have a project in Sherwood. It's in Fernley. It's off Fremont. We have been waiting for BOR because we had to do a land or an irrigation easement swap with BOR. And it was a very complicated deal. We've been waiting 2.5 years for that approval. Okay, and they were supposed to give it to us by the end of this year. When Trump got elected, they came back and said, hey, Trump signed these executive orders that they were not going to do no land swaps, no land deals, nothing. So they said, we can't do nothing with this project until March 31st. So we're sitting there on hold. We're going for final map. In fact, we're writing with final map addressing comments, so we put a hold on everything until this happens. So that's kind of where we're at with BOR.
Thank you. I have no further.
And the other projects in Fernley?
Yeah, we have our West Main, and we're going through FEMA with a hydrologic Clomar, and that kind of got delayed because the technical partner of FEMA was Atwell. Okay, we went through a whole round of comments on the Clomar, then Atwell lost the contract, CDM Smith got the contract, we had to start all over with those guys. So it's challenging, there's no question when you're dealing with federal agencies.
However, to be clear, these are not apples-to-apples comparisons. We're not dealing with FEMA here, and we are not doing BOR easement swaps here, which is why we spent the amount of time and money we did on making sure we had the utility access where we have it. These are not the same applications that we need from the BOR that we did on our Fernley projects. And we also, we did have our tentative map approved on a third development for a single-family subdivision in Fernley as well, and we're moving forward with a development partner there. So there's some progress, but it is the federal bureaucracies that are causing us headaches, which is why we've been kind of pulling our hair out over, all right, where you guys want a drop dead date, and we're dealing with the federal government that will give us 0 drop dead dates. So we had to pick a date out in the future with our investors that said, hey, at what point are we willing to walk away from this, because the city will not, the county will not agree to, some contract in perpetuity, which we heard loud and clear.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board or staff? Is there any public comment on this agenda item? I guess I'll just give my comments. I've been with this project since its inception, when it was on Planning Commission. I'm a little bit frustrated that we're all acting surprised that these deadlines have came about. We knew since 2022, since you actually signed the agreement with this prior board, and then on top of that, even when you're working with Planning Commission, we had all this going on. So I'm just concerned about signing another contract that's going to throw us out for 7, 8, 9 years, where there's going to be maybe more delays, more deadlines that are missed and stuff like that. So I've got some hesitation on it. Any other questions or comments? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, with my comfort level here, I would move to not grant any further extension of the purchase and sale agreement with Vertex Fund 3 LLC.
Do I have a second? I'll second
Mr.
that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll second that. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys. 7G was removed from this agenda. We'll jump to 7H, consideration and possible action. Application for funding from Churchill County to support a community event or program for Nevada Community Alliance Fallon Community Events in the amount of $3,500 for the annual Armed Force Celebration Day on May 17th at the Rafter 3C Complex.
Mr. Chairman, I'll tee this up, and then I'll
Thank you,
turn it
Jim.
over to our folks. So this is a reoccurring event that the Community Fund Support has funded in the past, and they are coming forward requesting $3,500 to support their Armed Forces Day event. But just want to be on the record that they had previously had 3,000 participants in this, and it's a yearly event that's been going on for several years now.
With that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Good morning, guys, and thank you for hearing us today. Yes, we do come to you guys every year and ask for the support. It's good to show support to our community and our veterans. With the $3,500 that we're asking for, we plan on doing advertising and food, the meat basically, to feed 1,000 of our veterans and first responders and military in our community. And we would really appreciate it if you guys could help us out.
Okay, thank you, guys. Any questions or comments from board or staff?
Thank you for what you do for the community and stepping up with, to help promote and people recognize the value of the armed services. And, we thank you for that.
Thank you.
If there's no other discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
Yeah, is there any public comment? Motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the funding in the amount of $3,500 to support the Fallon Armed Forces Day event here in Fallon.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you,
You
guys.
guys are awesome, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
We'll grab a picture with you guys real quick. Taking it back there. Wanted to go to my old seat. Okay, we'll move on to our legislative update, 8A, consideration of possible action, update on the status of all bills in the 2025 Nevada legislature, and support or opposition to any bills that has an impact on the county government or the citizens of Churchill County. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe Sanford for the record. I will say it's maybe a little ambitious to say all bills. There are currently, I think, about 700 bills out there right now. And so Pam has brought up this nice Excel sheet that has the current status as of, I guess, last week. My office is going through all of the bills. We're trying to select a department that is most related to. We send it out to each of the departments throughout the county for their comment. Usually, as our county goes through, we just highlight the bills that potentially have an effect on us and decide whether there's any fiscal impacts as well as any other significant impacts to the county. We bring it back before this board to make a decision on whether you would like to direct staff to go and make a comment or write a letter, or however we would like to potentially address any concerns we have with any particular bill. I'm going to start with a couple of bills that are out there today that I think are relatively important to the county. There are a larger number than this, some of which have significant fiscal impacts that we have already made note of to the legislature. And so That being the primary concern that we have, it's already slightly addressed within the fiscal impact note. But I'll start with two water bills, AB 104 and SB 36. If we can get there on the spreadsheet, great. But essentially, these are the two main water bills that are back again from the last legislative session as it relates to conjunctive management, as well as the creation of a program for retiring water rights. These are always a very contentious issue in the legislature. Our water consultant, Chris Mahana, does a great deal of work on these bills. He's supportive of these two bills. They have essentially been amended to be very similar at this point in time. The major piece on the retirement is just establishing a program under which a retirement of water rights could exist. There is not a request for funding at this time for that program. Instead, it would be something that would request funds from the federal government or other entities, and then this would provide the framework under which someone would be able to retire water rights. So that is currently proceeding. It's always opposed by several members of certain groups. Typically, the mining groups have opposition. But generally, Churchill County has been favorable to some type of conjunctive management planning, just so that the actual hydrological connections make sense and we don't end up in a situation where we have over-appropriated one resource or the other. I'm not asking you to take any action at this time, but it is on our watch. I would, I guess, next go to SB 43. This is something that our health district is working on and has had some communications with the state, but it essentially gives the right for the state to have the, I guess, control over wastewater and solid waste regulations, even though the health district exists here in Churchill County. Our health district has been working with all of the lobbyists on this, as well as my office, and so no action is needed at this time, but it is something that we've been working on and kept our eye on. It is currently something that our health district is not able to do, and so they've been working on it. And I see.
Just a quick comment. So that we're also creating a record here, as well as a record that was created at the legislative session. We had a meeting with Director Settlemeyer and some of his staff, and basically put on the record with them our expectation that at some point in time in the very near future, if this were to pass, that the NAC code development that would happen at the state level and go through regulatory approval would note in detail what the expectation the health district would have to meet and what the intent of those expectations are, which is that the health district itself would have equal standing or equal footing in that conversation, in that discussion. It wouldn't simply be a decision made by INDEP whether or not they deemed the health district, what's a good word, Joe?
Competent is
competent. That's the one that we kept coming back. Competent or not to be able to take over those roles and responsibilities in the future as we moved along. It was really important that we got that on the record, and that's, I apologize, Joe, for interrupting you, but I wanted to make sure we're duplicating that record here so there's a sense of history beyond this session. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Barbie. I'll turn to the next one is AB 66. This is a relatively important bill to Churchill County. This bill will extend the number of district court judges in the state of Nevada, one of which is for the 10th Judicial District Court here in Churchill County. Obviously, these bills have a significant fiscal impact. My understanding from having watched the hearing as well as had communication with folks involved with this, that their intention is to only move forward with including Churchill County in this bill if Churchill County wants to have this judge. And so, depending on the view of the commission, this would provide for a second district court judge at the next election cycle. There is some cost. The district court judges are paid by the state, but their staff are not. And so there is a fiscal impact to the community. There is potentially, obviously, we're coming with a new courthouse in the construction plan and timing on all of that, and I'll let Manager Barbie sort of give the advice piece. I just want to let the commission know that if they want to move forward, the request will be that the commission adopt a resolution requesting that this bill be passed. And that way they will have the ability and knowledge at the legislature that they aren't creating an unfunded mandate for us.
Additionally, I would just add to that, as an outcome of the budget hearing and discussions in terms of schedules at Justice Court and the District Court, and looking at court services and the clerks at the court, Judge Stockard and Brenda Ingram are currently meeting and discussing and looking at ways of what may make sense if we did get a second district court judge, in terms of basically merging some of those things together that are doing those roles and responsibilities, and not to basically duplicate where each district court judge would have their own set of clerks, but maybe where we have a department of district court clerk services, and that would all be consolidated. So they're looking at what that could look like, and what that would reflect in terms of FTE, and obviously this is something that would be in a future budget discussion, not reflective on this budget this year, because there's not enough time. And again, if this were to move forward, depending upon your guys' support or non-support, you're talking 26, right, Joe?
That is correct. So the next one I will bring up is AB 51. This is a provision related to public records requests. There are a couple of different bills in the legislature now related to public records. From a county perspective, county department perspective, they are extremely beneficial changes. They are designed to, I guess, more formalize the process for how a person is supposed to request a public record from a public entity. Currently, it is extremely broad. If someone passes you in the hallway and says, hey, could I get this record? Technically, that's a public records request. Even though it's verbal, they may not know actually what record they're really looking for, and it's not defined, and it's not on a form we can understand. It still counts as a public records request, which can be extremely problematic, especially when we have folks emailing to the county who may have complaints or concerns with the county. They may not think they're making a public records request, or they may have a 15-page email, which we sometimes receive, and somewhere in there will be a request for some document. And right now, it's the obligation of every entity to read all of that correspondence and say, is there any request in here for a document that I need to provide? And then you have 5 days to respond, and the penalties are quite stiff every single day that we do not respond. And so this bill is very helpful to the county in terms of formalizing what people would need to do, how they would need to transmit it to us, and then most importantly, I think from a budgetary impact piece, that they may have to pay a reasonable fee for the cost to us to acquire those records. I believe the sheriff will be happy to tell you that public records is something that is becoming more and more of a burden on every single agency here. And when people make a request, they are oftentimes very, very broad with that request that doesn't necessarily actually reflect the document that they want. They will say, I want every report from a certain officer. Or we had one where it was, I want every building permit that you've ever issued, which is it's a very significant amount of time to acquire all of those records, to get it in some sort of form that can be transmitted and then provided. And so currently, there's not a lot of way to recoup that cost. It used to be somewhat limited because these records would be printed, and so there was still some cost. Currently, they're provided electronically, and so oftentimes there's no cost at all. And that leads to folks making requests that they may not actually even want the answer to. So this is a very good bill for us. I do not have a whole lot of optimism that it will actually pass, just because public records is something that is, no one wants to be on the record to say we don't want to give public records. And I don't want to give that impression because we're big believers in transparent government. We're happy to provide any record that somebody actually wants to get done. A lot of this would go towards tailoring those requests to match the record you actually want, instead of just putting a blanket out there and saying, well, I know that may cost 30 hours of public staff time, but it didn't really matter to them. So we have our eye on it. I'm not going to ask you to support it today just because I'd like to have a little more information on its likelihood of passing or having even a hearing before we take any formal action. I do just want you to know that this is a bill that could be potentially beneficial.
Joe, I got a question. So do we have any idea who will be setting a reasonable fee?
So the reasonable fee would be based off of the cost to actually create that record. And so it would be communicated beforehand, but we would say, okay, you want every building permit that's ever been created was a request that we received. And so at that time, we said, look, there's a lot of old records that are archived or in storage, and we can go get, but we'll have to scan them in. And, the cost to get the records from 1970 to 1999 might be $20,000. The cost to get you the ones after we went electronic is $50,000. So do you want things after we went electronic? We'll send them to you right now for $50, or right now it's just nothing. But so, that was a reasonable cost. And so the whole idea is that we can work more clearly with requesters to limit to what actually it's going to be related to. And so when there is an extreme cost that might be incurred, we can inform them of that cost. Sorry, AB 109 would be next. Oh, see, that is red. It's, so this is a geothermal bill. I think the intent behind this is somewhat reasonable, which is the intent is to have the state engineer have the right to review all of the water used in a geothermal operation, whether that's consumed or not consumed, and to have regulatory authority over that. However, there is a concern when we talk about regulating non-consumed water that how that gets implemented could potentially kill the ability to do geothermal at all. And since that isn't really discussed in detail in the bill about how that would work, it would all just fall under the authority of the director of water. I can't remember his name right now. Adam. The intention would be, I think, good, but how it ends up getting implemented could be extremely detrimental. We have provided this information to the Fervo folks who came recently to make geothermal applications so that they are aware of this bill. I don't know that the county necessarily needs to take a position today. I just want to let you know that it is potentially impactful. We have informed all of the geothermal people that have made contact with us that this is out there and that they should potentially have an opinion and try and get this resolved as to a way to address an issue that they may have and could impact the county eventually. I think the last one for today will be the county road bill, AB 84. Unfortunately, Mr. Fowkes, our road supervisor, and myself went to that hearing with the sponsor, Greg Koenig, our assemblyman. It was a bill made at our request. The, I think, result of that was that it was opposed unanimously by essentially every union in the state. There's some belief that it's related to pegging the rate to a construction index and that that could bleed over into the regular public works area. And because it could bleed into the regular public works area, not by our language, but people just thinking that it's a good idea, they have opposed it and have no room for negotiation, and so I do not expect it to pass. I don't remember the exact number, so I'll just mention there are a couple of bills out there related to court fees and costs for providing access to, I guess, access to justice, but communication from the court system to people who are having hearings, which has a fairly substantial fiscal impact, as well as reducing the ability of the court to collect on fines and fees, which also has a significant fiscal impact. I've been watching those bills to see whether they have any traction. So far, they have significant fiscal notes from every county, and so I don't know whether they're going to pass. That usually means they will not, but they are being watched as potentially strong fiscal impact concerns.
Okay, thank you, Joe. And just so you two know as well, so generally speaking, what happens here is that he'll report to us those, those bills, and then if there's any that you know you want to support or know you want to oppose, you just make a motion, stating, I want to support AB so-and-so, I want to oppose AB so-and-so, or SB too. But it sounds like we don't need to take any action on any of those, so we'll jump to letters received. Did anyone want to pull any of those? Okay, we'll jump to new business, 10A, consideration and possible action, ascending site application filed by C&A Rental LLC for property located off the Schurz Highway, APN number 006-092-16, consisting of approximately 72.53 acres with approximately 59.47 irrigated water rights in the A10 zoning district, whereby the applicant proposes to establish a sending site and place a conservation easement on the property. Dean?
Thank you, Dean Patterson, Public Works and Planning, for the record. This is an application submitted by Colby Frey for C&A Rentals to enter the property into the sending site program. Property meets the minimum requirements. The calculations from code result in a number of TDRs of 88. The sending site review committee recommends approval. The planning commission recommends approval. And so you have a decision on this application for you today. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Dean. Any questions or comments for Dean? Is there any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
I can't remember.
I think so.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on this matter. Item A, approve the sending site application for C&A Rentals based on providing community benefits of preserving 72.53 acres of farmland with surface water rights, protecting nearby military operations, and the protection of water recharge areas. Item B, approve 88 transfer of development rights, known as TDRs, for the same property.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, motion carries. 10B, consideration and possible action, ascending site application filed by Arthur Peel for property located at 9350 Pasture Road, APN number 006-092-07, consisting of approximately 193.9 acres with approximately 155.32 acres irrigated water righted property, whereby the applicant proposes to establish a sending site and to place a conservation easement on the property. Dean.
Dean Patterson, Public Works and Planning for the record. Similar to the previous application, submitted by Arthur Peel to enroll the property in the sending site program. The calculation from county code results in TDRs equal to 252. The sending site committee recommends approval. The planning commission recommends approval. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions or comments for Dean? Is there any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the sending site application for Arthur Peel based on providing the community benefits of preserving 193.9 acres of farmland with surface water rights, protecting nearby military operations, and protection of water recharge areas. And B, approved 252 TDRs for the same property.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Dean. Did anyone want to pull anything off the consent agenda? If not, a motion to approve that, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Does anyone have anything they want to consider for a future agenda item?
I do not.
I do not.
Okay, we'll jump to Commissioner and Management Staff reports. We'll start with you, Mr. Hyde.
We went and met with our delegation over some issues. We're experienced with the base expansion. I think it went very well. I believe that there will be some more action and meetings taking place so we can get this rectified and make sure that we see this all the way through.
I also attended DC and met in those same meetings. Very beneficial as usual, so excited to see what comes of them. Commissioner Blakey?
I attended a CETA meeting. We're gonna try to institute a revolving loan program for small businesses here in the community to help them get over that hurdle of staying open. I went to a ribbon cutting at Bayou Bites. That was pretty good. You guys should check it out. And we also went to Washington DC, and it was very positive meetings with our delegation, and they were very engaged, and they were very knowledgeable of the situations that we're in, and it looked very promising, for sure. And then myself and County Manager Barbie and Chairman Ghetto, we attended the Silver Summit ribbon cutting yesterday, which is going to be a vital asset to our seniors here in the community, or actually everyone. And it looks like it's going to work out real well. That's all I have.
Thank you. Sherry?
Just working on that tentative budget to get back to you.
Thank you. Joe?
I don't have anything, thanks.
Jim?
Just that we're working today on moving the manager's office and IT over into the other suite where Public Works used to be, and then that'll keep kind of daisy stepping folks through to slowly do new carpet and new paint on the building. And had the pleasure of having lunch with Gary Rothery yesterday on his last day here at Churchill County, and he is going to be sorely missed, and we appreciate his service. A great man, and he did a tremendous amount. I know in my tenure here, he did a tremendous amount of work to improve the county's facilities, and that's just going to leave a void that we're going to have to deal with, but we wish him all the best of luck and happiness. Good guy.
Linda?
Yes, a retired husband already. Our office is tracking 53 election bills, so that's, just a lot that we're doing. Whether it's, impact or not, we are still doing all our responding, and we are tracking on those. Property taxes the due date was Monday. There's been quite a bit of foot traffic throughout the building, and still, will occur, so hopefully we don't get in the mover's way. We're working on our 2025 tax sale, so that'll be coming to the board probably in the next meeting or so, and then I'll get a list to that to the county manager as well.
Crystal? Pam?
Nothing for me.
Sheriff?
Thank you. Good morning. I forgot my glasses, so bear with me if I have to extend my arms out a little bit further to read this, okay? Yeah, I might need them. We have been looking into some items and some areas that we can get funding to help offset or to make purchases that we need to help do our job, knowing the budget area that we're in. And so some of those areas that we've looked at as some grants. We started looking at a grant through the Office of Traffic Safety, and that would deal with an updated reader board, because our current one is, I think, 20 years old or older. The technology that's in it is no longer supported, as you can imagine, and we are constantly getting complaints from citizens in regards to speeders, and I'm certain that you guys have heard or seen those as well. So we've looked into how to get some spot checkers that we could put on roads and determine when the speeders are actually happening, what the frequency is with them, and that kind of thing, so that we can put directed patrol. We don't have that technology right now, so we started looking into how would we get it. Office of Traffic Safety has a grant, but there's some steps that we have to take. And one of those steps is that they want us to participate in a joining forces event. We've, in the past, have been participating in this. For those of you who are unfamiliar with what joining forces are, they have a series of events that they ask you to participate in. They pay the wages. It has to be on an overtime basis, and so we're going to have to work with Sherry to try and figure out how that works with the comptroller's office for hours. But it's directed enforcement. And so that's one of the first steps that we would have to take to be able to get into the other grant pool for the reader boards and the radar signs and that kind of thing. So right now we have our paperwork filled out. We are ready to submit it to the Office of Traffic Safety, but it would include a couple of seatbelt enforcement actions, impaired driving enforcement, so we'd be out looking for DUIs to make sure that we're getting those guys off the road before they kill themselves or somebody else. Some speed enforcement, which is what we're getting a lot of complaints on. Pedestrian enforcement and distracted driving, making sure that people aren't driving with their cell phones. The reason it's called joining forces is because we would be joining forces with other agencies, and it would be a push across the state to make these events happen. So that's what we're looking at right now. The long-term plan is, this is step one, and then step two is this opens us up to some other grants that we can apply for in hopes to get those reader boards, updated radars for the cars, that kind of thing down the road. But we feel like this is a good first step. We've participated in it in the past. When I was a patrolman, I participated in it. As a sergeant, I participated. As a captain, we oversaw it. So it's not the first time that Churchill County's been a participant in joining forces. It's just, it hasn't happened in a little while. So. A couple of other areas that we're looking at is part of my staff today is in Carson City, Lexipol. Our policy formulation company is putting on a Ninth Circuit legal update on the jail stuff, as well as some training that's required. And so they're putting on an update over there today. So I have my undersheriff and one of my captains over there attending that today. I'm excited to let you guys know that a vehicle we ordered 2 years ago finally arrived, and we were able to drop it off at Sierra Electronics for the final outfitting. It was a vehicle that we had purchased for the jail out of the commissary funds. We worked with your office probably way back, a long time ago, to get that funds going, and it just arrived. So we're excited that it made it here. It'll be good for us because it's a jail transport vehicle. It'll be just used for making sure that inmates get safely to and from their appointments to other jails, and we can do that without having issues. We have oral boards, so hopefully we can get make progress on hiring to fill our last open slot tomorrow. We have order board set up for tomorrow, so we thank Chris and his office for helping us with that. Next week, myself and several members of my command staff will be attending Western States Sheriff's Association training and conference in Reno. They're hosting training on the jail, on some correction stuff, legal updates on that, as well as with federal agencies. And there's actually some Indian law training this time, which is interesting to us since BIA is making some changes and we have a new chief at our tribal police. We attended 2 days worth of training. They broke it up over the 2 days, so it wasn't a full 16 hours. It was 8 hours, actually, of training put on by the National Commission on Correctional Health Care. It dealt a lot with suicide, the latest demographics for in-custody deaths, as well as some requirements for checks. We found that to be timely. 2 of our members of our training staff met with approximately 15 to 17 members of the New Frontier training or staff, and we hosted the second of our trainings there for armed assailant and the civilian version of it, so that they were aware of what happened if somebody were to come into their facility. I think we are working with one other company in town that wants us to do the same training, and we also met with a private school to go over some quick response items for them. They had concerns about where to direct and if their doors were secure enough. We didn't have any answer on the door security because that's not what we do, but we did give them some ideas based off of the training from Alert, which our guys are certified in. Joe mentioned earlier, working with bills and lobbyists, and Linda did as well. Almost daily, we're getting questions from Nevada sheriffs and chiefs lobbyists in regards to bills and language changes that they're putting into bills, and will this fly with you guys, will this not fly with you guys? And so there's a lot of that going on back and forth, not just reading the bill drafts for you guys and putting stuff for you, but also with the lobbyists asking questions. So it's a very busy season, and some of the input we give doesn't seem to matter, but we're still giving the input so that they know where we stand. We received, well, let me back this up. I don't know if you guys have seen on social media or on the news, there was a publication or a post made about a model policy dealing with immigration that was put out by the Attorney General's office. It went out to a select number of members of law enforcement, sheriffs and chiefs, some which are no longer in that role, some of which are current, but some of which are not. It did not go out universally to all of the current sheriffs or even the current chiefs. And so there were some people left in the dark. And so it's created a little bit of confusion as to when we're supposed to get that back, who's supposed to get that back. And so we've met as a group. We tried to meet with some people from the Attorney General's office. A contingent of us did. But the rest of the sheriffs met. I think it was 12 out of the 16 or 17 of us that are there. We met to discuss it. I have met with District Attorney Art Mallory in regards to that. And so when we have our model policy ready, he has asked that he sit in with a meeting with us and I think a couple of members of the civil staff to go over that immigration model policy, because we're required by law to either adopt the Attorney General's one or send them a letter back stating we are not and provide a copy of our policy. So we're working on that. It's a little bit of an issue. Those are the main things that I have here today. If you guys have any questions, I'm open to taking your questions.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any questions? Okay,
No
thank-
questions, but thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you for your time and let me talk your ear off.
Thank you, Sheriff. Claims and payroll are going around. At this time, is there any public comment? Okay, we stand adjourned. We have paperwork to sign, then we'll do our quarterly jail inspection. Thank you, everyone.